Welcome to the second part of this episode with Mr. Adharsh Gajendran, the founder of Wifer. In the first part, we talked about his college life internships and how did he manage his college life with the business. In this part, we'll talk about funding and how the idea came to his mind. And also, we talked about how did he run the business till this point. We'll be also launching a third part of this episode soon, so stay tuned.
So again, moving back to your journey after doing this 6 month internship at in Hyderabad, when did this idea of Wi-Fi came to you? Like in what year? When did the idea came to you?
Hmm. So this was again at the end of 2020, right? This is when I was wanting to do my bit in because we did see news everywhere that people were like everyone's health was deteriorating, and especially mental health and symptoms of even neurodevelopmental conditions were becoming worse. And that's when I was like, why can't we do our bit and try and help? So during one of these visits that I did to a special school, um, I did come back feeling all nice, having helped these children, but that feeling of disturbance was staying with me for a while. And giving it some thought, I realized that kids that had such little differences in how their minds worked had to be taken care of so differently and had to be isolated, right? It's not how it's supposed to be. And during that time is when the talk about neurodivergence and neurotypical, neuroatypical, and on all sorts of stigma breaking was happening. And so that's when I realized that maybe the problem isn't with children itself, and it's in the way that they are interacting with this world. How about we just make them more accustomed to our ways or how things are, and also meanwhile through other social initiatives be inclusive of these children. So that's a more longer term picture. This was the vision. So I went to these experts again, these special educators, doctors again, to understand what the actual situation was. It seemed that even though their practice was going all right, even though they had to spend certain amount of time to get the children to a certain stage to be able to understand what we say, what they were worried about more was that the time that was getting spent off therapy wasn't being utilized. In fact, it was destructive. That parents would either let the child be unattended or have them be occupied with just phone, give them a phone, have them sit in the corner, or worse, give them improper care, right? That's in contradiction to what the therapist would have wanted. So because of this, I felt like, why don't we build a product to support the child off of therapy in line with whatever the therapist would have wanted. So that's where the idea for Halera was born. It's evolved since to become this metaverse platform that we're building now. So that's where it started.
So to give a context that now just please expand that. Okay, in Wi-Fi this product Halara, actually now at this stage, what does it do?
Okay, so what we've built at this point is this hardware product. We've imported this headset from Europe, and we've essentially built an entire safe virtual world filled with all these different exercises, right? Filled to the brim, but also gamified to the maximum that the child is engaged very properly, but also gets skilled up in, let's say, attention skills or social skills or being able to interact with day-to-day objects. So simulation type scenarios. So those are the exercises that the product has, while also providing them with special education and even providing them a bit of relaxation and engagement. So what the product does essentially is skill them up in this gamified approach, but also having the parent be worry free, having them having the children engaged with the games, so that later on when the child does go out in the world, it's not really a worry for the parent. So that's the product.
Okay, so once you got the idea, you also developed the product right now.
Hmm.
The phase when you got the idea and the phase where you have built the product, what was the journey about? Like
Hmm.
once you got the idea, how did you design it? What was the first ever step? Because
Right.
that's where you get the most confused. Okay, you got the idea, you also know that okay, this is an issue, but now what? How will you start developing it?
Right. So this idea was in Also, I was in talks with one doctor who did get me in touch with a few specialists in Chennai. So that's where I'm from. And so all throughout 2021, we did talk with many more special educators, try to get an idea of how the situation is, what the common symptoms are. So that's as far as the tech is concerned, because uh, since I was already working in this other VR startup trying to develop a product for glaucoma, so it was diagnosing different visual field conditions at that point. So, because of that, I had an experience building products in virtual reality. So, immediately switching over to this was just like prototyping another idea for me. And so, we started out tech like that. And only after a point did I realize that tech is fine, idea is fine, medical side is fine. But what about the business side? Because until then, it's just a project, right? It's just something. So, how do we make a product out of it was the question then. So, we spent about 4, 5, 6, even all this year, right? Even last week we were still tweaking our business model. So that's how it is. Now we've come to a clarity.
So again, I wanted to talk about this difference between an innovator and an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
You are an innovator. You were an innovator. You developed a product. You were good at what you made.
Hmm.
But also, the product has a business side,
Right.
and you learn it. And you are an engineer. I don't think you have a commerce background anywhere. So how did the difference struck? Like, how did you go about it,
Yeah.
managing the business plan,
So
figuring out everything?
I think sorry to interrupt. So I think that's where the 6 to 8 months went, right? And understanding what it takes to make a project into a product, and what is it that actually surrounds it as a business, right? Um, be it the pricing. Usually, when you have a product, the question comes as what are you going to price it at, right? So that was the first question I went to. I was like, it's easy, this number. So again, tight smack to the face saying, this is not going to work, try again. So spent about a few weeks learning what it takes to find a model around it, make a business canvas, business model canvas, and all of that. So it's been a journey. So I've done my in a way commerce background by doing this, right? Understanding what it takes to run a business from different aspects.
How did you figure out the target market? Like, okay,
Mm.
you are going from a business to business perspective,
Mm.
you are going direct to customers.
Mm.
So, what is the plan right now?
So this did start quite differently in the initial phase. We did start with direct B2B selling to doctors and hospitals and research institutes. Um, but over the time, this business model evolved to be more of a B2B2C. So where the the business in between is the middleman, and we are selling to customers. So this again, there is no other way. So I again, all of us coming from an engineering background, it's pretty intuitive to be like, let me read all these things, let me watch all these different videos, try and understand how the market is. Let me formulate a business market based on that. But what's been a learning curve for all of us in the team, because all of us are from an engineering background, is that you're gonna have to go out. So that should be the first step in building a business, where you have to go out and talk to people that would buy your product and understand if they really want it. You can't just keep building in isolation, because the market's going to tell you otherwise. The market's also going to change. Um, Masks weren't a thing before COVID. Now they are. Glass vessels, I mean, glass flasks weren't a thing. Now they are for transporting vaccines and whatnot. So things like that, right? Market keeps changing. The only thing, if you ask, is to go out and talk with the people that would buy a product. I think Kunal Shah also talks about it. Keep being in touch with your customers, and that will help you build the most effective product. So that's something that we've been doing as well.
So, again, in like next 5 years,
Hmm.
10 years, what's the goal? Where do you want to be? Like, is there a valuation? Is
Hmm.
there a number of products you want to sell out?
Hmm.
Like, what's the mission of the company?
So, I mean, the vision is very simple. I think it's even written here. The longer term of the company is to build a serious challenger to the international VR thing, right? So, let's say some household in some city in Patna or even JK, JNK, if they hear about Wi-Fi or sorry VR, their thoughts will be, hey, what's this company doing in India? Uh, so right now it's Facebook. Right now it's just the word, right? Hype word, metaverse. So if it becomes Wi-Fi, then my mission would have been over. So it's being able to make in India because we have some serious sick talent here. So being able to unite all the cool tech geeks and being able to build a company out of that has always been the mission. Being able to promote that culture here that yes, you can learn, you can do all these things and be able to build all these products because it's not so hard. Once you get in, it's not so hard. So that message has been the primary goal. And to do that, to be an example seems to be one way as of now. So that's what we're focusing on.
Yeah. So like, how much time this company has been established? I think it's over a year, right?
Yeah, it's a little over a year. So
Yeah.
back in 2021 November is when we registered. So the whole year I ran without. I mean, we didn't form a company then.
Okay. So like operating since a year, you also got grants from the government.
Mm.
Do you look at it as a fundraising business? Like, do you look at VCs that okay, in future you may raise money because that's what hot right now. You become a founder, you raise money,
Yeah.
you reach a valuation, and just keep chasing that.
Mm.
Being bootstrapped till right now, and how that journey has been like running on funds.
Mm.
You have a limited funds.
Yeah.
Also, do you look to the company as in future you may fundraise?
So there are like multiple views to this, right? It does go borderline controversial, but here's the deal, right? At the end of the day, you're running a business. When you are seeing from outside, it does seem fancy to be able to make money just by convincing people, right? Be it 50 lakh or 1 crore or 50 crore, 100 crore, whatever, right? But inside, while you're doing it, I'm not sure if, I mean, even at this stage when we're starting, I feel, and I'm sure that even bigger companies would feel it. There's no actual feel of harm running a business. I am making money, like because it's always when do I go and talk to whom next, right? How do I convince these people to give me more money? It's always the run. So you're always racing. As a founder, I'll get to the essence of it. I'll have to get to why it's necessary, but there's always that fear, like what's next, right? At least at this stage, I'm sure at the burn rate that those companies are at, even then, you're burning 5 lakh every month or every day. So it's always a question of what's next, right? And you have to give returns to your investors and all of that. So business at the end of the day has to make money. That is business, right? You're trading value. If it just keeps coming in and just keeps dissipating through internal means, you're not really impacting external people. That's not really a business, right? So you've created value by saying yes, not valuation. Value by saying, here's an idea, here's this vision. I've gathered together the top talent, so you're adding value more and more to this organization that you're building, and the product comes out of it at the end of the day. So that should be equivalent to the value that we've built here, right? I mean, the total value that you're dispersing outside. So if you still keep saying no, I'll build this to be a big giant ball, I don't really see the point of it. There's no end goal. There is this saying, I will take as much as possible. It's like uh, getting all the energy source into one cell and just saying I'll reach profitability in a future period. But all the companies that are happening now, the question that does come to our mind is at what cost, right? At what cost do you raise funds? At uh, like this much valuation, you're bringing in money, you're laying off people left and right again. It's very dependent on what the external market is. I mean, or what the internal fundraising scene is that layoffs are happening than how the business is performing, right? Because on the other hand, Zoho, Zerodha are unaffected by this because bootstrapped. They know they're making money, so they don't have to lay off. If they have to, it's their own internal reasons. So that's the power that it gives. But on the other hand, so that's the philosophy in my mind, right? But on the other hand, it is also true that to achieve some scalability, after you've shown some traction, um, in a very resource heavy business, such as developing hardware, right? You have to establish some credibility in the market. So someone has to pay the price for it. So you're still doing business in a way, in this case, not when you don't have a product, when you're going out raising money. So raising money should be for scalability. When you have an initial traction, you go to investors saying, see, I do have a promise, this is going to happen, it's happening already. If you give money, this will be the return. So you also make money, customers also getting value, we are also winners at the end of the day. So that is the ideal scenario, and that's when we're also looking to raise funds. So that's been the goal for us, right? When it comes to business model, initially it was very resource heavy. We had to have this much money to do this, do that, and all. Now we found the sweet spot, which is being we'd be able to make money with just whatever we have right now. Let's get to a very comfortable position, leveraging only on our skills. That would give us also the confidence that we can do it how many other times we want. But if in case we want to accelerate, then we can raise funds. Scaling up at, let's say, instead of 2x the speed, 100x the speed, that time you can get someone on because you have confidence in your team. So I think that's the ideal situation. Though.
Yeah, so I had heard a podcast of Amit Jain, the CEO of CarDekho.com. He also said the same thing that okay, raise funds, but when you want to scale,
Yeah.
not when you want to develop the product.
Yeah.
If your product development is taking funds, then maybe the product is wrong.
Yeah.
You need to give that energy from yourself to develop the product, and for scaling, raise money. That's not an issue.
Yeah, so this is one very like famous, very commonly used quotes that don't experiment with others' money, right? Don't test out stuff. So that though I also went through. So throughout 2021, I still I just quit my internship to double dive into the product that I was building. Throughout the second half of 2021, I kept applying everywhere, right? So meanwhile, I was also working on the business model, like I said. After a point, I knew that maybe people won't give you money for your own testing. Maybe you have to build something. So that's when I decided to stop whatever progress I'd made, shelf it for a while, sit down with the business model, saying, yeah, see, this is what I have now. I'd be able to make this much with whatever product comes out at the end of the day. This would be the money that we'd be able to make with this much team. So if you give us this much, we'd be able to return you 3x, 4x of it. So that was the basics. I'm again obviously cutting it short, but that was about the time that I had to sit down, just form a firm foot in the ground and say, no, kuch nahi ho raha hai. Let's just work on this. Then let's go out and apply. Right after I did this, got into program. Yeah, so that happened.
I hope you loved this episode as you did the first part. We'll be launching our third episode soon, where we'll also talk about artificial intelligence and chat GPT with Adarsh. So stay tuned.